Hello and welcome to another Drew Rants recap video. We are going to be talking about the Japanese Grand Prix. I know I already had an instant video reaction, but this time we're going to be talking about the winners, the losers, the mediocres. You guys know how it goes. But first, let's talk a little bit about how the predictions went, okay? So first of all, 8 out of 10 in the top 10. That's pretty good. I think we can all agree that picking 8 out of 10 after the safety car incident, that's pretty solid. But not the greatest results that we could have expected. I actually had a big blunder when I said that Suzuka usually doesn't have any issues because we had all the issues this time around in the 2026 Japanese Grand Prix. We were not expecting that at all. I mean, you saw my instant video reaction. I said it was a great race. Before that, I was thinking, man, this is going to be a snooze fest. I might fall asleep mid-race. It didn't happen because there was just so much going on in the race. So this was much, much different than what I had expected. And I guess you can kind of say that that also applies to my predictions. Now, one thing to note, and this is really cool, I actually got this from one of my friends. And it is super cool. It's actually, I think you can read it. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. It's a Charles Leclerc's 2023 car for the Ferrari. And I just wanted to shout out Maria for that. She's super cool. And I got this in exchange for cake pop, guys. So if you just be nice to people, sometimes you get stuff that's probably worth more at the end of the day. So this was awesome. And if I had a shelf behind me, I don't. I would put this on it. And hopefully when I move into my next apartment, I'll be able to put this right here so that y'all be able to see it during my videos. With that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about the driver performance index. Okay. So I kind of explained it in the Japanese Grand Prix predictions video, and I kind of talked a little bit about it in my instant recap, but I'm not using the exact same formula as I was before because I talked about how there's a 0.7 and there's weights to it and things like that with qualifying. I decided to go against that. I created a different formula that is actually more of a model for who performs the best in relation to their teammate based on the race results. It's pretty complicated stuff. If you want me to go into the math, I can. I'm not going to talk too much about the math, but all I'll say is that it takes, because the whole point of the formula I'm using right now is to try to negate car performance and only isolate the driver performance. It's super complicated and hard to do because so what this actually does is it tells us who had the best race weekend in terms of superseding expectations of the car and where it's at. The whole idea behind this is more to reward who had a really good race relative to their teammate and relative to the car. And so, for example, last year I ran the same data, and I believe Ollie Behrman won last year, which kind of makes sense if you think about how Haas didn't do super well last year, and you have the comparison between Ocon and Ollie Behrman, and Behrman doing really well last season. So Behrman won. For reference, Max Verstappen got fourth, which is still really solid, but at the, you kind of see the difference between when he's qualifying first and he's not actually finishing first, or he's qualifying third and he's finishing first. It's not going to be as much of a jump. So a lot of this is rewarding midfield racers, and I think that's fine. And you'll see why it's important, and you'll see that it's still relatively good for what it does. And this week is a pretty good example. So you just bear with me on this, okay? I know I ranted about math, so let's actually talk about the driver performance index. So when I do these driver performance indexes, all I'm going to do is talk about the top 5 performances each week. And maybe I'll mention the winner as well, but realistically, it's just going to be the top 5. So at the 5th best driver performance this week, you would not have guessed it, but it is Carlos Sainz with a score of 72.6. Now, what that means is that Carlos Sainz actually had a pretty good performance relative to where his qualifying was at, which is true because he qualified in 16th and then finished in 15th. So there's some, relevance to that. But then also Alex Albon finishing well below where he was initially slated and then not qualifying as fast. So Sainz is going to be rewarded for out qualifying his teammate and winning respective to his teammate as well. That's kind of how the algorithm works. Now, in number 4, we have Pierre Gasly with a score of 72.7, just narrowly outscoring Carlos Sainz. Pierre Gasly had a great race weekend. We can all agree on that. And then we have Liam Lawson of Racing Bulls in number 3, and he had a score of 80.9. I would say with Liam Lawson, this makes sense. He had a pretty solid race weekend. He ended up in the points. Now, you could also have guessed this, but Oscar Piastri is number 2 with an 89.3 as his score. This is clearly like a very good result. It also means that this algorithm and formula does actually work with these high performance teams like McLaren. This is a good sign because Piastri, so he qualified in 3rd. I believe Norris qualified in 5th. And so roughly you'd be expected to qualify around P4. That's like the expectation with the car. And so Oscar Piastri getting P2 is actually really good. It means he's outperforming the car. That's kind of the way it looks. That's kind of the way the formula works. And then in number 1, by the way, the number 1 driver always gets 100 every week. That's just how the formula works, because a lot of times the actual score will supersede 100. So we just have a cutoff at 100. And it is Esteban Ocon, which is quite funny because you all know that I'm not a big fan of Esteban Ocon. But here we are with Esteban Ocon being the number 1 rated driver of the Japanese Grand Prix in 2026. Hey, you know what? Good for him. I think it's probably well-deserved. I think there's a good argument for it. I would personally argue that Piastri had a better race weekend than Ocon did, but again, something that probably could be adjusted in this formula. At least I could take Ocon out because a lot of times if you have a teammate that doesn't finish, you may get a hyperinflated score. So that is possible, although Ocon did have a good race. So just something to consider. This is the first week of this, so we're still fleshing everything out, but I hope you guys like that part. Let's get into the losers of the week. This is what you've all been waiting for. So, first up, Ollie Behrman. Yes, you all saw the race. You all know. If you haven't seen it, go watch the highlights right now. I'm already spoiling it for you, so just go watch the race. You can watch it on recording, DVR, whatever. Ollie Behrman had a crash. He had already qualified in P18. The P5 dream for Ollie Behrman kind of went out the window this week. And that was a little disappointing to see because I was really hoping that he would put on another masterclass drive and we would have a really solid weekend for him. And that probably could have happened if his car and his qualifying would have been in the right spot. We probably wouldn't have had much different predictions than what actually took place. I think the main anomaly would have been Piastri again, but Ollie Behrman's crash caused a lot of things to go wrong this week. And I really hope that he's okay. Seems like he's going to be. Seems like he's got a month to recover. He should be all right. But Ollie Behrman's crash caused a lot of other losers. So getting into those, some other people that lost are the people that were negatively affected by the safety car. That's pretty obvious stuff, guys. Like this is not, rocket science. Who lost out? The people that pitted before the safety car or after the safety car. It's like, okay, not rocket science. Get it. I get it. But just to name some names, Isaac Hadjar, Lindblad, Bortoleto, I think maybe even Carlos Sainz was in that mix of people that pitted before the safety car. Obviously, you have some other people that are on this list that did actually pit before the safety car, but I'm including them for other reasons. So that segue goes into George Russell being one of the key losers for this week. Why is he a loser? 1, he was favored to win the race. 2, he didn't even qualify in P1. 3, George Russell flipped out after the safety car, called himself the unluckiest driver. This guy was not happy. Now, what did I say in the Japanese Grand Prix prediction video? Does anyone remember? I said George Russell is prone to things that go wrong with his situation. And what did we see? We saw some complaints. We saw some things go wrong for George Russell. We saw him upset. What does that do to him? What does that do to him mentally? We don't know what kind of guy he is. We don't really know if he's going to take that internally and he's going to have some frustrations. I imagine that's what's going to happen. I do. I think that's what's going to happen. Seeing that Kimi Antonelli is now in front of him after George Russell was talking last year about Max Verstappen coming to the team and Kimi not having a spot on the team, like, no, dude, you would have lost your spot on the team. That's where we're at right now. That's where we're at right now. And George knows this. I know he knows this. We know that George Russell knows that we know this. And so we have this whole big problem now for George Russell, which is earn your spot, earn your title, earn your championship. Can you do that? He might gain more respect from this. He may actually have a good shot at gaining more fans than he has. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen at all. I don't think he's going to win this championship anymore. I think he's lost it. I think it's falling out of his hands right now. And the reason I say that is because not only did he have bad luck this race, but he couldn't keep the car on pace either. So he was trying to catch Piastri, and then he got overtaken by Hamilton, and then he tried to overtake Hamilton, and then he got passed again by Leclerc. So what was he doing? Right? I mean, there was this whole debacle where he used too much power and then he got immediately passed back. And so then he was behind two Ferraris and he's all upset again. And this is the whole point, is that George Russell right now is looking at himself and saying, I need to make sure that what I do is the best for my score, my driver's championship. That's what he wants to do every race. That's all he cares about. That's all he cares about. And so when something doesn't go his way due to something outside of his control, he kind of loses it a little bit. And if this happens again, and it happens again, George Russell's going to lose it. He's actually going to lose it, and I think he'll snap. So that's why I think he's a bit of a loser this week. Clearly not a great spot for him. It's unfortunate. I also think a loser for this week is Lewis Hamilton. Because another thing that I mentioned in my Japanese prediction video is that Lewis Hamilton is not going to be able to outpace Charles Leclerc. And what happened? He was number 3, and Charles Leclerc was number 4, and Charles went and eventually picked him off and ended up getting that podium. And then what happened to Lewis? He started falling behind. George Russell passed him. Norris passed him. I mean, it's unfortunate, but Lewis was holding on to podium for quite a little while there. He was in P3 for long enough that he knew he had a shot. Granted, he benefited from the safety car, but he still had a pretty good shot, and he wasn't able to hold on to it. And I think Lewis is really going to have to take some of that into account, really take that personally. Moving on to mediocres. For the mediocre side, we've got Williams, the racing team, because genuinely, what were they doing this week? Like, can anyone tell me what they were doing this week? Like, Alex Albon was going for a stroll, like not Lance Stroll.
Hi, how are you?
Editor, but like actually like just going for a stroll. Like I think he pitted like 3 or 4 times. They're treating it like a test session. I mean, that's what they were doing. Like genuinely, what was Williams up to this week? We don't know. We don't know. What was Carlos Sainz doing? Going a whopping P16 to P15. That is pretty much as mediocre as it gets, guys. I don't know if there's much else that you could really say about that. So yeah, that's Williams. Kind of a controversial mediocre here. I think some people might be mad at me, but I think this is a necessary mediocre here. I got to give it to Max Verstappen. I really do, because what I said, guys, I'm like a prophet. Okay, I'm like a prophet. If you really think about it, I'm like a prophet. What did I say in my Japanese Grand Prix prediction video? How many times have I said that in this video? Like at least 4. But I said that Max might not even be able to get past Pierre Gasly. And what happened? He was fighting with Pierre Gasly for 30 laps, and he couldn't get by him. I mean, that's beautiful stuff, right? He got by him one time, and that's it. So why do I bring that up? Because if Max had gotten past Pierre, we'd probably say he had a pretty good race. That's what I would say. I would say going from P11 to P8 is decent, but you know, it would have been a little bit better if he had gone P7, right? Somewhere around there. You know, replacing Gasly. right? But it just didn't happen. It just didn't happen for Max this week, and that's fine. But it's not what you would want from someone like him to be able to do. Performance wise, I think he did fine in the car. I think, again, he's driving the car that he's been given. And a lot of people are saying, I saw a lot of comments on Twitter and a lot of comments on Instagram saying, like, oh, this is what all the Lewis Hamilton fans had to endure when Max was winning all those races because people were saying that Max could win in anything. Guys, guys, Max is a great driver, yes, but so is Fernando Alonso, right? I mean, there's levels to the game here, and it'll get closer, right? Once it gets closer, it'll be fine. Um, I don't really think that that's really important. I don't think that's necessary. What I do think is important is that Max Verstappen does better than what he did this weekend. Because if this is all we're going to get from Max Verstappen this year, we're probably not seeing him next year. Like let's be for real. This is not good if we want to see him in the future because I don't think he'll stay. If he's sitting at P8s, P7s consistently, he's got nothing in the tank to go to P5 and P4 and compete for podiums. Like, good luck. We're not keeping him around. He's going to go do other stuff. He's going to go do endurance racing. And what are we going to do? I mean, it's not like we can stop him. So anyway, that's just my thoughts on why it's probably not good that Max isn't performing well, but also that he needs to perform better given that his car isn't bad. It's not bad. It's a decent car. And I think he could perform better in qualifying. Knowing that Hadjar can perform pretty well in qualifying, I think he finished P5 in one race before he wasn't able to actually finish. It has some good pace. And obviously it depends on the track. But Max needs to be able to capitalize on that in qualifying and in the race. Usually he's been pretty good at that. He didn't do that this weekend. So I got to give him a mediocre. He's not a loser because a lot of these losers like really lost this week. So I have to throw him in the mediocre category. So let's get to the winners. Number one winner, very obvious. Number one winner, Kimi Antonelli. Kimi Antonelli, hey, good for you. I think I already talked about this in my instant reaction video. You and Piastri, you guys take the cake. You guys take it all. Piastri having a P3 to P2 weekend. Really great stuff. Phenomenal. He probably would have won this race without that safety car. And Kimi probably would have won the race had he not had the bottled start. So whatever you make of that, I think both of them had phenomenal races other than those two things. I think Piastri even more so than Kimi, even though Kimi had a great second half of the race. I think he still stood to gain a lot more from the safety car. Interestingly enough, though, Kimi was able to get a little over the exact pace that was needed that he would have gained from the safety car on Piastri. Now, I still think Piastri would have won the race overall, but it is something to consider. Like, Kimi definitely would have ran away with that race had he started in first. And then I think another winner for this week, also sitting in the driver performance index, is Pierre Gasly. Pierre Gasly holding off Max for 30 plus laps is incredible stuff. I never would have said that last year. I could never have imagined that an Alpine would be able to defend Max. And I think Crofty even said in the race commentary, like last year, Max would have been lapping him, right? Like a smooth, like lapping, because that was what was going on with Alpine. So this is a huge transition. It's really, really good for Pierre. And honestly, I've been rooting for him a lot more, even though I severely underpredicted what he would be by the end of the season. Even though it's only 3 races in, I think I really think that I'm rooting for Pierre to have a great year. I think if he finishes P8, P9, P10 in the driver championship, I'll be very happy for him because I think it'll be well deserved. And I think he's scoring a lot of good points. I think he's having great races so far. I haven't seen him make a whole lot of mistakes. He defended really well. He wasn't being dirty. He was playing the game, and that's really good. So props to Pierre Gasly. Another winner, I mentioned these guys in my actual instant reaction video. Aston Martin, you guys are winners this week. Hooray! You finished a race. Fernando Alonso, how does that make you feel? Uh, sheesh. I mean, all that just to finish a race, you know? Man, I don't know if I have much else to say about that. I have to give him the win. Apparently, it's a big milestone for a huge franchise like Aston Martin, but here we are. Still giving him the win. So, another winner also on our driver performance index is Liam Lawson. Kind of already talked about him, but Liam Lawson definitely deserves it this week, finishing where he finished and qualifying out of the top 10. I think even with the safety car, he was able to make it. So, and also kind of showing what the Racing Bulls car can actually do. Again, what I said in the Japanese Grand Prix, I do think that Liam Lawson or Arvid Lindblad could sneak into the top 10, and I wouldn't even be surprised if that happened if he snuck in over Hajar. And I mean, granted, he didn't just sneak into the top 10, he snuck in a couple more places in. Liam Lawson is a pretty good driver, and he's showing that he's actually got skills. He's showing that he's got more than just what the 2 races at Red Bull let him accomplish, and I think that's a really good thing. So that's really, really good for him. And then, of course, Esteban Ocon getting his points this week. I think he had a very good drive. I think he was showing that Haas has still got it. But again, it's Esteban Ocon. So that's all I got on that. So for the final winner of the 2026 Japanese Grand Prix, we have the F1 fans. That's right, the F1 fans. Why do I say that? Because the F1 fans are going to get something that is really, really exciting. We have just seen a race where Oscar Piastri has split the Mercedes in 2. Single-handedly, by the way. I guess you could say Charles Leclerc did it as well, but the idea is that we now know that Mercedes is vulnerable. And with this month break, we're going to have way more unpredictability in the races. People are going to be way more invested. People are going to want to know what these teams are bringing to the table. They're going to want to know the upgrades, and more excitement and more unpredictability leads to better racing. And that is exactly what we're about to get, because in a month from now, we're going to have no idea where these teams should end up. I have no idea what's going to happen in a month, and I love it. I think that's great, because this is a new regulation cycle. It was already unpredictable, but then we have the testing that tells us that it's not really unpredictable, and we have very set order of teams, but then this race shows us that that's not true. So what's really, really good for us is that we're going to have a lot more unpredictable racing, and we're not going to know what's going to happen. And that is a really, really good sign for us, because that means we'll be entertained. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure to drop a like, comment, subscribe, whatever. I really would appreciate that. And, we'll see you in the next one. See you later.